Hey there, dear tech fam. I have a question for you. What if you had a big idea, didn't know how to code, didn't have capital? Would you still build it? Our guest today, Dan Hafner, he did just that. It started with a simple idea for a fitness app. No money, no technical skills, just a goal and a problem he wanted to solve. Agencies quoted him six figures. He even considered learning how to code. But then he found something that changed everything. No code development. Now today, he runs Dapper No-Code, helping non-technical founders bring their ideas to life in under 90 days. He also hosts the Tech Bites podcast, where he shares his hard-earned insights on entrepreneurship, tech, and mindset. This episode, we dive into what people get wrong about no-code and how AI is flipping the script, how Dan uses white labeling, and we even get into why he started making wine in his basement. If you've ever sat on a business idea because you didn't know where to start, Dan's story might be the nudge you need.
Into it. Dan, how are you?
Not bad. Not bad. How are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Whereabouts are you from?
Well, from Erie, Pennsylvania, living down here in Pittsburgh now.
Pittsburgh. Okay. How's that? So just to start off with, moving every 3 years. So a lot of my friends are doctors, so I know what that's like. But how did you end up in Pittsburgh, and what was all that change like?
My wife's from here.
Okay.
She's from like Latrobe, like outside of Pittsburgh. So we have been together since we went to school up here in we were up in Allegheny.
Okay.
Is where we went to school, and then I was a year ahead of her. So then we've kind of followed. Like I went to DC for a while. She was still in school, and then we've kind of, it was like medical school, residency, fellowship, job kind of thing. But her family has been here. My family's still in Erie, so it was kind of like the logical place to, for her job at least. And that's why I was able to build like a remote job for myself, so I can be like, yeah, sure, we can move wherever.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, so then that's the question, for at least to start for me. Was it always entrepreneurship? Why entrepreneurship?
No, I had no desire or no thought of even doing this really at all. I originally wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a history teacher and a football coach when I was like back in college. I was like, I don't really know if I want to go that route. I'm glad I didn't go into the educational space. I mean, God bless teachers, but I'm glad I'm not a teacher. No, I mean, and then I had no idea about anything to do with the technology space until I basically, being forced to move all the time, was able to just kind of land a job as a help desk person. Like, hey, we got a job for you. You can troubleshoot and do some password resets. I was like, all right, cool. So that was kind of how I got into that. And I ended up getting promoted into a job of quality assurance, which was software testing. And that was kind of my first deep dive into like, oh, software is pretty cool. I wasn't developing stuff. I was just testing stuff manually. And that was kind of my my initiation into the software world, which was pretty cool. And then I got into sales at times, and I worked for an advertising firm. So then I've kind of combined all of this stuff into my business, what I do. I kind of took all bits and pieces of my past, to put it together. So
It's really cool how, so it's very funny because I've done sales, and I was a business analyst, but the company I was at, I don't know if I can say it out louder, but the company I was at was going through this issue of you remember when the chips in our credit cards first came out? So they weren't compliant, so they were losing like $1 million a day. I was a BA for them, and then we were like, all right, well, everyone needs a QA test because we need to get this out. So I think maybe our experiences in that was very different, because for me, it was like, I don't think I want to be in tech anymore, which was the initial thought, and then going from there. But that's really cool. So, well, this is the main part of it. I've done a bunch of research, and I'm going to try to quote you a few times, so you can call me out on it. But
Mhm.
let's go into no code, because I've known about low code for a while, right? Low code's been, and I know no code's been around for a while too, but I think for me, low code was the more famous of the two up until fairly recently, up until like AI
Mhm.
kind of kicked no code up a notch. So can you go into how no code makes sense, how you came across it, what was the thought process, and how you decided to turn that into a business? Because from my understanding was you had a business idea, and that was where it started.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it all began. It was kind of going down this path. I was still working at the help desk jobs that I was in, and just kind of got to thinking about the entrepreneurial way of doing things. Like most people, I got introduced to it through the Russell Brunson path of dot-com secrets and such. But yeah, I had this idea, and it was just an idea for an app. And at the time, like I said, I don't know if at that time I had, yeah, I had actually, that was after my QA days, but I had this idea for an app, and there's a running and fitness thing, and I was like trying to lose some weight before my wedding, and just didn't really have any idea of like, okay, I know what I want to build, but I don't have any idea how to build it. Didn't know how to code, didn't know how to do any of that stuff, and I didn't have any money. So
That's a great combination.
yeah, it was a great combination. I was like, well, shit, how am I going to do this? So the first thing I did was I looked up like, agencies. Like, okay, here's my idea. What can I do to like get quotes online? Like, what would you charge me to build this? Got quotes of like 100 grand, 250 grand, things like really, really high. Like, I mean, that's cool, but yeah, there's no way. Right.
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, option number 2, let's learn to code. Let's just figure that out. More power to you. That's not my cup of tea. Not my cup of tea. I mean, I was working full time. Remember, I was past college, past, all this stuff. And I tried taking a couple courses, and I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. I cannot figure this out. This is not something I want to do. And I feel like I always can make fun of coders because I worked with them for so long. Like I worked in a QA world, so like I always feel like I can make fun of people a little bit. But then it was like, okay, I still have this idea, like, how am I going to do it? So then, lo and behold, the beauties of the internet and Google searching at the time, was, hey, these no-code tools, no-code and cheap, fast building. And I was like, ooh, that's interesting. So sure enough, I just like started signing up for this platform, signing up for that platform, signing up for this platform, and building the thing that I want to do. Because every time I got into a platform, I'd be like, okay, it's cool, it does this, it does that, but it's like, it's not very advanced in this kind of thing. Okay, let me go try this one. Okay, I can do this now, but now it's like not quite as pretty or like whatever. So all of those, and that's kind of the common thing that's still to this day of, depending on your platform, you might find like, okay, it does about 95, 99% of what I need it to do, but there's like just that one other thing that I just kind of wish it would do, right? Which I think, like you mentioned, like AI is really helping that, but this was 2017, 2018, before all this stuff was really everywhere. But lo and behold, I got it put together. I got it launched, and I got it, published, and it took off, and it was really awesome. And I was like, holy crap, like this is really cool. And learned that I built a skill set for myself, and was at the time doing, podcasting heavily, and people were like, hey, you think you can do something like that for my business or this or whatever? So it turned into a side thing, and then turned it into a full-time business. So, that's kind of how it all started. I didn't go to school for it, didn't learn it. It just was kind of like I saw a hungry hamburger stand, a hungry crowd, and I was like, I'll put up the hamburger stand and I'll sell it. So yeah, that's kind of how it all went. It was really, really, really interesting how it all came together.
So I have listened to some of your podcast episodes, some episodes I thought were cool. So I want to ask you, based on what you just told, the story you just told, you have a part about validating ideas. Did you just jump in even before you came to no-code, when you were like getting quotes from agencies? Because when you went to an agency, it's going to cost money, right? Like it's going to cost some dollars, right? Whether that be 200 or 200,000, that's neither here nor there. At that point, what was your thought process when it comes to validating an idea? And did it take time for you to, because now I'm assuming you've helped build several, like many apps. How did that thought process grow from that first thought of, I'm going to go to an agency because I have an idea that I like, to now when I'm sure you can like see an idea and be like, all right, this is what we need to do to get there, to validate?
Well, I don't want to brush over something you just said. You listened to some podcasts and you said some of them were cool. Apparently not all.
No.
That's cool.
I was looking at titles of like, what can I get the most out? Because the thing is, the beauty of what I liked about, I know, but I need to rebrush what you just didn't let me brush over.
I know.
I needed to get to know you well. And I know that you have a lot of episodes with guests, and I was like, well, these aren't going to really help me get to know Dan. So I can ask questions that aren't just, tell me why no code, which I'm going to ask anyway, but like, why no code's a good idea. I want to be able to be like, all right, well, we're going to talk about the dogs. We're going to talk about the wine. We're going to go through it, right? This is long form for a reason. So
I know. This is why I love podcasting, is you can just like throw things like that in there.
Hell
it's
yeah.
Just so much. And it's Friday afternoon. Like I've had a long week. I'm ready to just chill. I should really be drinking a beer while I do this. Like,
when you said you make wine, I would be like, it'd be great if we could like we go get one of your wines, I'd buy a wine or like a beer or something. I don't have any alcohol in the house right now. But or else I would have been like, yeah, let's do it because I'm right there
I
with
just
you.
bottled my my last batch of peach wine the other day, so we'll see. Usually you gotta wait, let it sit a little while before you drink it.
So how do you make it like at home, or do you have a place that you go to use a facility, or
Yep, make it all at home. My basement, so
like a
it's
giant
legit.
bathtub type of thing? Or
I mean, I just kind of do it. We have like a side kitchen that kind of thing down in our basement, and I just kind of have it right there and stuff. So I only make 5 gallons at a time. I'm not like a serious,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
mean-
brewmeister or anything. But that 5 gallons gets you about like 20 to 23 bottles usually, like almost 25.
sounds like a limited collection to me. It sounds like you could
So-
drop, sell 20 bottles, once a quarter and be like, this is limited edition stuff right here.
I know. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, your question about validating. We can talk more wine later, but
We go anywhere you want. Just we can go back and
yeah.
forth.
That's a good question because, that's where I didn't, looking back on it, I don't think I knew really what I was doing when it came to validation, and I've learned a lot since then. Because really where I started, and even where I tell a lot of people that I work with even anymore, is before you even do anything, like just ask real people. Like, I think that's what I did. I kind of had this idea of, because there's 2 schools of thought. Like, I've run into 2 different types of people that like have this idea and they're just like oversharers. They'll just be like, oh my God, I have this cool idea. It's so cool. What do you think? What do you think? Whatever. And then they usually have multiple ideas. But then there's the people that are like chronic, like, I'm holding on to this idea so tight because I don't want anyone to know. Oh, you want to talk about it? Let's sign an NDA first. And I'm like, okay, sure. But what I did was I was the former. I was at least at that time I was just kind of like, hey, what would you think about something like this? And it was interesting because a lot of the people I worked with really weren't those types of people. They weren't runners, they weren't fitness gurus, so they were just kind of like, cool. It's kind of neat. But then there was a Planet Fitness on the other side of the building. I would go over there, might run into people or talk to different people or whatever. And that crowd like seemed to be like, yeah, this is actually pretty cool. Like, this is not a bad idea. So that's like a very small way to do it. I mean, it's very simple. But then, the other piece of it was market research. Like, the other piece was I would constantly dive into, okay, what else is out there? Like, and that was kind of where I got the idea from. Was I was big into running at the time. I was trying to lose weight. I was looking, like, Googling or like going on the app store, like running apps to lose weight or whatever. And you'd find one, you download it, you use it. I kind of saw that I kind of, with my software background at the time, I was like, okay, I can kind of see the gaps in this market, in this, like, I know that there's, the idea for the app at the time was like, you can run and you can log miles and you can actually make money back from that. It was like there's a thing called Diet Bet. There's like healthy wage, like those types of things. And that was the idea, to bring that idea into running. So there's like multiple stages of validation. I think there's multiple stages of validation in that, like, okay, is this like actually an idea worth pursuing? Is there some kind of market fit? And then I think your last form of validation actually comes like when you launch the damn thing, like when you actually put it out there and you share and you like optimize it and you do whatever, like, does it work,
Yeah.
And I was able to take that app and actually make it like, I almost cracked the top 25 at one point. I
Damn.
think I was like top 30 or like top 35 or something like that, for running and fitness apps in the app store.
Yeah.
But that took several months, but then I was like, okay, now there's some real validation behind
Yeah.
this, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, I think that's
epic. I think for any, because we're speaking specifically towards, business ideas in terms of apps and no code, but that goes for any business, like even like a podcast, for at least, like, just to talk about it. When I saw like, oh, this podcast, my podcast is now in like 6 continents or 6 countries, 1 in each continent. Cool, right? Like, it's like, oh wow, like I didn't expect that. Don't know who the heck they are, but thank you, right? So it comes, and any other business, it's like someone bought your product and say, hey, it's good. So that's super cool. And can you tell me, so when we think of when you think of no code, not even when you think of no code educated, but even if you're not educated about what no code is, when you hear, hey, you can build this without using coding, the idea goes to, oh, must not be as good, right? Like, oh, like it's of course, it's like a little box. It's not as pretty as XYZ app would be. So can you tell us some of the major misconceptions about no code today? Because 2025 no code is very different than even when you started, right? In like 2017, it's very very different. And then yeah, let's start there. What are some misconceptions that are still out there?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the first one is like, okay, I'm not going to be able to make it as complex, or it's going to be, or it's just going to not be as suitable to what I need, right? And I think that's partly founded, kind of like what I was mentioning. There are still ways I think that no code is catching up to traditional development in that, there might still be things of like, well, hey, I need to connect it with 900 of these things and then run this internal scheduled workflow that does this and that and the other thing. And then the platform's just like, yeah, no, we don't do that yet. Right. So I think that but it's moving so fast, so I think one of the misconceptions is like, I can't build what I want to build. I can't build this complex, awesome tool that I want to build. And I think that also, I think that's not true, because we've built some very complicated, complex, web applications that sync with mobile apps, that have a shared database that runs scheduled things, that do all this kind of stuff, have AI built into it, whatever, custom APIs, all the whole 9 yards. It's just a different way of building. It's just a different set of problem solving steps that has to go through it, because, that's one thing okay, like we need to connect these tools. Well, maybe there's like we have to use Zapier, we have to use Zapier. I'm sorry, it's called Zapier, not Zapier. I always say Zapier. Zapier or Make, or like kind of use a tech stack in order to be able to pull something off, or like a Airtable thing, Notion, whatever. But there are still ways that you can do it without really knowing all of the ins and outs of those types of things, right? I think the second big one to cover to talk about is like, okay, I can't scale. Like I'm gonna even if I build it with no code, I'm gonna eventually need to move it onto a coded platform. I'm gonna need to custom build this, which is why build it with no code to start with, right? I'm gonna have to take it off of this platform. Why even start, right? Very, very good question. I would actually point anyone who's interested in that to an episode of my podcast where I talked with the founder of Podmatch, where we met.
Yep.
Alex Sanfilippo. They built Podmatch on Bubble, a no-code platform, and transitioned it to a custom-coded platform. And I did an entire long-form podcast about that whole process. So if you're interested in that, go check out that episode on my show. But you don't necessarily need to do that. For them, the situation was, okay, they went through it. They figured out, okay, this is what we need to do, what we want to do because of X, Y, and Z. But there are a lot of people that don't ever feel the need to do that. In fact, there's some people that actually go the reverse route. And we were at BubbleCon this past fall, and there was people that went from a completely custom coded solution and were like, this is too bloated and too big for us. We like the Bubble model. We're going to move it from a custom solution to a no-code solution.
Wow.
And I was like, holy crap, I've never even really heard of somebody doing that. That's pretty amazing, So I would push back on that misconception, and that say like there are examples of entire businesses that are built on these models that are scaling and doing things. I interviewed another founder of a platform called Backendless, which is a no-code platform, a lot like Bubble, but it's literally the name. The benefit is in the name of Backendless, like literally unlimited database scaling, back-end capabilities built on top of no code. So you don't even have to worry about that as you start. It's literally back-endless, right?
Wow.
It'll scale with you forever. So there's so many cool things that are just changing so rapidly. It's hard to keep up with, honestly.
I feel like I can feel the stress to some degree of the software development world in terms of like developers. Like there are people there, they are titled back-end developers. And if you go back-endless like that just, which is, I mean, again, that's not a bad thing, because those people will have, like, in the future, it'll be a different job altogether, right? Like, just because we got machines building things doesn't mean that there aren't jobs that are associated with the same thing, because people are so scared about AI stealing jobs. And I'm like, the job style just changes. But there's the things we learn in school will just end up changing. Like, it's not that calculators stopped us from learning math. It just means we learned harder math a little bit earlier on so we can do more things going forward. With that being said, to every teacher that told us that we would not have calculators in our pockets for the rest of our lives, I'm not going to curse at you right now, even though we curse on this channel, but I'm gonna let it go because that's some good teachers. But yeah, that shit, I keep thinking about it. I'm like, every time I pull out my calculator. Anyway,
It's fine.
I digress. So let's talk about your company itself. So Dapper No-Code, going from that first project to, you said, people said, hey, like, can you turn this into a business? If it's okay with you, I'd love to hear about the actual building that business thought process, going from the first project to deciding to go to the second one and beyond. Was it like people came to you and you just started doing projects and charging, or were you like, you know what, this is a business, I'm going to start marketing myself and then finding clients? And what was that like?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think I've ever been asked this question. You did your homework. I like it.
Do my best.
So I think when I started, it was kind of a mixture of both. I think it was more, I actually had a false start in my business, to be honest. So I was like, January 2020, I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. This is going to be awesome. Just like everyone else in the world. And then COVID comes along. And I actually was like, okay, I had a couple of clients, ready to go, ready to pay, ready to do everything. And then they were like, yeah, we're shutting down. This is not going to work. This is not going to be a thing. Because I was actually, at the time, I was like, maybe I could do this for gyms, restaurants in my area, like small businesses. And then they were just like gone.
Damn. Yeah.
So then I actually didn't even really do anything until about October, September of that year.
Shit.
When I restarted, and it was just kind of like this calling of like, like I think that I need to dive back into this. I think it's time to get this going. So sure enough, just started with some social media posting, like, hey, I now do this. I have this thing, interestingly enough. My very first client, who is like my biggest case study, and I love to talk about, I met through one of those posts because my cousin was roommates with her in college and saw this post and then tagged her, was like, hey, contact my cousin, and
wow,
and off we go. So that was how I got my very first client. So don't underestimate the power of just posting on social media.
Yeah.
And then once I realized, like, oh, this is actually something that I can get clients from and do some things from, I did start doing just some very simple cold email outbound stuff. And that netted me like the next 3 or 4 or 5 clients inside of like a month. And I was like, okay, like there's really something here. I'm going to do this, and then the rest was history. The rest was, that was kind of how I got off the ground. And it was funny. I had a couple of introductory offers to get myself off the ground, which I love to promote with people, because a lot of people have anxiety around like, getting started and like, what am I going to charge? How am I going to do it? What I actually did was I offered like some really good, almost like lifetime pricing of like, hey, I'm in need of startup cash. You're in need of your app or your software or whatever. What if I do it for X amount of dollars, and then you won't have to pay me for like 5 years, or we'll just pay the hosting fees, or like anything like that. Like it wasn't like I was willing to work for free, but I was willing to work at a discount.
Yeah.
That was a moneymaker. That was a big moneymaker, because then boom, it was like 3, 4, 5 clients in a month, and I was like, boom, I got startup cash.
Yeah.
Now I can pay my bills, like do what I need to do. And that was amazing. That was really, really cool. So yeah, and then the rest was history.
And I'll say, for a business like yours, like also having those 5 clients, it's something to point to and be like, we helped these people do X, Y, Z. And it really helps propel, because again, for generating business, it's some way, shape, or form sales. And everyone's question is, what have you done? What's your work? And having that, even if you were working for free, not saying that you should or shouldn't, but that's such a cool story. Cool. So let's jump into me mentioning, I mentioned AI. What changed since the start of AI? What was the biggest push? Because I was actually very, in general, when it came to AI, not to sound, and I'm not old, but to not sound like a grumpy old man, I was very much like, God damn it, another thing to learn. And it was just because it was like, and it's funny because I see how things change where I was just like going from being the person that was an early adopter to everything, right? Like when I had my cell phone, they had the swipe keyboard, which is what a lot of people use now because it's on everything, where you don't have to type on everything on your phone, you just drag it. I was one of the first like 100,000 people in the world to download that and use it, and I was showing it off. And now when ChatGPT came out, I was like, fuck this. Like I don't want to, right? Things have changed. That was a long time ago. But how has AI changed the game for no code?
Oh man. In a lot of ways, like I think one of the biggest things that it's like helped me specifically with, and then how we help like even myself and my clients and all this stuff is moving faster. Like really with the design piece of things. There's so many other tools now that I used to just, you kind of had to go into Figma and kind of do stuff by hand and figure out like, okay, let's wireframe this and then kind of maybe do this and whatever. Now it's just, hey, give me designs on this thing that looks like this and does this and has this dashboard with these cool colors and whatever. And then it spits it out for you in 5 seconds. Like, that's a game changer. You don't have to, like, I mean, that's like a completely, that's a Fiverr gig that's now gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I mean, that's one big thing. The other thing is, we talked about validation earlier. That's an interesting way to maybe, I mean, I take it with a grain of salt, but I've
Sure.
also used ChatGPT a lot for, hey, what might be the problem, the real world problems of this particular avatar, and how might a software solution fix that or solve these things? And you can combine that with your, real world data and stuff. But that's a very interesting use case for this stuff. And then, features, like, hey, I want to add this new feature to my software. How might that work, and how can I fold it in seamlessly, and what might this do? And you don't have to sit there and really ruminate on it for a long time. You just kind of, it's however long it takes you to put in the prompt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is really, really crazy. But then, one of my mentors said, he told me, he's like, um, Dan, I think there's going to be almost no such thing as no code in the near future. It's just going to be AI. Like it's just AI. It's not no code plus AI. It's just AI. And I don't know if I fully buy that, but then I'm also seeing things like Bubble recently came out and said, hey, there's a complete AI prompt that builds your entire app for you. You just say like, hey, I need it to do this. It's not even just a prototype. It's a functional application. But then what do you do? What do you do from there? It's not, you still have to go in, you have to learn how to use the software, and I want to change this and I want to do this and this doesn't look right and this doesn't function right and whatever. What they're doing this year is building in AI to that particular build now of like, hey, now that this is built, hey, this list doesn't configure right, or I needed to have this extra filter here. And you build through prompting. And that's not live yet. That's coming out this year.
That's
But
crazy.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That is so mind-blowingly crazy because, I mean, yeah, I've used a couple of tools, new tools out there that are like, okay, put your prompt in and we'll build your app. And then that's where it stopped, was like, okay, now what do I do?
Yeah.
They market like, hey, just prompt your thing, get an app in 3 steps, prompt your
Yeah.
thing and output it and off you go, 2 steps even, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's great. But then nobody thinks about that. Like, okay, what if the AI hallucinates? What if it doesn't work right? What if this link is broken and this doesn't work? How do I fix this stuff? I don't know how, right? So it's interesting. And then I really have not played around with Canvas a lot. I know a couple of my friends that have and that do, and that has changed the game a lot because they really, really like it. And even tools like it, that has really changed the game. That's not really a no code thing, but that's interesting because now somebody can go into Canvas and say, hey, build me this software tool that does this and whatever. And And I'm really interested what the no-code platforms really think about that tool, right? So it's changing a lot of things. It is for the betterment, I think, of the world, but also there's like you said, like it's a different job now, because it's like you still have the back end business problems, you still have the back end fix problems, there's still those things are not going away yet.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a very precarious, very interesting time frame that we're in right now. It
Yeah.
really is.
I feel like people forget that, like, just because you have an app out, that's not the business. Like, the app
Right.
itself, that's not the business, is everything beyond the app, because
That's an engine.
right. And I don't know if you heard. So my dog just started barking in the middle of when you were just speaking. If you didn't hear it, I'm hoping that it didn't come
I
into the mic.
did a
You
little
did a little.
bit,
Okay,
which is
I'll fix
it's
it in
all
post.
right.
I'll fix it in post.
My dogs always bark during the podcast too. It's all good.
I gave him a frozen treat, and I gave it to him too early. I didn't time it right because he should still be eating it, but I think he finished it. Anyway, I
What kind of
digress.
dog you got?
He's a pit. He's a COVID rescue. Got him in
Oh, nice.
March of 2020. My first dog, and I picked a 10-month-old pit bull that needed to be rescued, was abused and everything, and I knew nothing about dogs. And that was, I'm not going to tell the story now because that'll go on forever, but yeah, I learned a lot those 3 months, but now, yeah, he's the best thing ever.
That's cool.
You have 3, yeah?
Yes,
What,
we have
what
3.
kind?
We have 2 little Chihuahuas. They're older, and then we have actually Jack. He's an Aussie Shepherd Golden Retriever mix. He's like pure white with blue eyes. He's really cool. But we got him right before COVID, like late 2019.
Wow. That's a lot of energy, yeah?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes, it is. Well, the older ones, they're getting a little, they're slowing down. We found out earlier, our middle one, he's actually kind of on his last leg. We found that out this week, which is really sad. But it happens. It's part of life, you know?
It's tough. My parents just lost, well, it was my cat, but my parents took over when I moved, and they just passed away in June, and my parents yeah, anyway, my question for what you just said about, because you said, it'd be like an app in 2 steps, right? That's coming. So you have and correct me if I'm wrong, like fast track. So it's like, it says an idea to an app in 90 days. Can you walk us through what that looks like? How is that 90 days, and how does it go from idea to app?
Yeah. So that's pretty much for someone who's kind of in the stage of like, all right, I got this idea. Ready to go. Let's launch this thing. Let's get this going. So really there's like kind of 3 phases to it. Like the first phase is like, okay, let's, maybe some people have designs ready. Like some people come to me with like Figma designs in hand, like, hey, I already paid, someone to do this, or I got AI to do it or whatever, which is great. A lot of people don't. But we'll basically, we go through the design validation, setting up a wait list process. That's a very important thing of like, hey, when we launch this thing, we need to have a wait list of people who are ready to buy it, ready to download it, ready to go. So we do all that. And then we'll actually work through the requirements and what it needs to have in order to go live. And then we'll actually build it. So it's, kind of plan, build, and then launch. Those are really kind of the 3 simple phases to all that. But the cool thing about it is, just like you alluded to earlier, just because you got this cool app or this software, the SaaS or whatever we help build, that doesn't mean that it's like you're off to the races, you're the next Mark Zuckerberg and you're off, you're just retiring on a beach somewhere. Because we set up the back end systems for you as well. So that was one thing I realized about, I don't know, a year or 2 into my business, of when I first just started building apps for people, was like, okay, we'll build you the app, we launch it, and then, okay, great. That's it. That's where we stopped. I did that deliberately because I was like, I don't want to be the marketer and like the business owner kind of thing to all of this stuff, because that's a lot, But I changed my tune where I was like, you know what? I see a lot of people just building and launching the thing, and it's just not really going anywhere. They really don't know how to run the business of a technology company and just all this stuff. So that's part of the kind of the 90-day, and then kind of beyond that is, okay, website, landing pages, payments, subscriptions, email marketing, all of that stuff. Like, how do you actually set that up to be the back end to your front end engine of the software that we now have for you, right? So it's an entire ecosystem. It's like standing something up like that inside of 90 days. It's pretty incredible. It's really awesome. So that's pretty much the process of how all that works, and it's very very hands on, very we don't I always go back to the analogy of like no one really likes to see the sausage being made. Like when I go to a restaurant and I order my food, I don't really want to go back in the kitchen and like see how it's made.
Yeah.
But some people do. Some people like to be involved in that at some level.
That's why we have hibachi restaurants.
Yeah, that's why you got hibachi restaurants. Yeah, I guess we are kind of a little bit like a hibachi, right? Because we'll kind of do it and then we'll send a Loom video like, hey, look how cool this is, kind of all that stuff. So, but yeah, that's basically what that is. And I mean, it's been really, really impactful and really awesome to see kind of our clients go through that and then just kind of go from that. I just had this idea and I don't really have time to do it or like kind of the willingness to make it happen, but here, let's partner with you guys and have this kind of come to life. So that's been really, really cool. It's been really fun.
It sounds, well, it's funny because I totally understand the initial wish of you saying like, I don't want to be the business owner to your business, but I like that. I think many people can empathize with that, but I also understand they need help, so I'll help them. And it also, like, from a business perspective now, it definitely makes sense for you. But that initial apprehension, I sometimes like I think of as like, do I want to be the business owner of my business? Because it's like it's not sunshine, because you're basically taking over all the stressful stuff, right? All the stuff that people don't want to deal with is what you're doing for them. So kudos. What I want to ask you about next is, can you tell me a little bit about, because I read you're talking about like white labeling is on the rise. And, white label is something that's been around in one way, shape, or form in many different industries, right? Like people do that with clothing. But I think that's probably where it started, but now you can move on. So can you please deep dive into like, what does white labeling mean in this context? And then what does it look like in today's landscape? Like what are some examples and stuff like that?
Yeah. So one key part that I left out in the earlier answer around how I started everything was this topic of white labeling, because that was how I started so fast and was able to get so many clients so fast with confidence, because I found a good platform that I was like, I can probably build a very, not super specific, but a relatively broad range, but also kind of specific type of application for a type of person or a type of business. And they said, hey, you can white label our software for a couple $100 a month or whatever the price was.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so you're telling me I can just basically, instead of going out and building this entire app building platform, I can just pay you to license that and put my brand and my domain and my everything on it? And they're like, yes. I was like, is that legal? And they're like, yes. I was like, do I have to tell people about that? They're like, no, you don't actually have to. I was like, holy shit. Yes. Sign me up, please. That's awesome. And I was like, wait, do I give you a percentage of what I make? They're like, nope, you just pay the license fee and you can charge people $1 million an app if you want. And I was like,
that's epic.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So that's actually part of what we still do. Like we still have ways, we still have that white label platform. And that is one of the coolest business models I think that's ever been been invented. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Because I hope that resonates with people, because like that's literally how I started. I didn't have anything like to my name to be able to say like, hey, this is Dapper No-Code's app building software. It was like, I'm going to take this one and put my name on it.
Yeah.
And then, hey, but, and one thing that, at least I went through, and I know like some people do in the white labeling space, is like, well, that's not yours. That's disingenuous, Dan. Like you're just reselling somebody else's thing. And it's like, well, yeah, I'm reselling something, because who is the beneficiary Like you can, and this goes back to software, you can build the coolest, slickest, most useful AI app in the world out there that beats ChatGPT to a pulp. If no one knows about it, it
Exactly.
doesn't matter. If
Exactly.
no one knows it exists and you can't sell it to anyone, what the hell does it matter, right? So all I'm doing is saying, hey, look at this really cool platform that we have out here. Hey, you have a need for something? Oh, great. It's a middleman type of thing. It's
Yeah.
a service that you're providing, and that was a very key differentiator that I learned. It took me a while because I was like, oh, I'm gonna white label this, and I can rebuild these apps and use templates and kind of shortcut things. But then I realized it's not called become an app rebuilder. It's called be an app reseller. An app reseller. Go sell apps, Dan. And I was like, oh, that's why. Okay, like I just need to sell and
Yeah.
then we can build. Okay. But yeah, that's that. I hope that that's kind of like the answer that's better for the white labeling stuff because it's so cool. Like there's all these different softwares now that come out that have white labeling capabilities. You can build a service around there because that's the differentiator. You are the differentiator
Exactly.
between, because there can be like, I know like Go High Level is a very big name in the space. You can white label it. We white label it. Like everyone has their different white label version of things, but what's the differentiator? Because if the software is the same, it does the same thing. It's a race to the bottom.
Yep.
Right. But if you have a service on top of that, if you have an expertise, if you have a consulting thing on top of that, that you can say, hey, look, you want to do this? Okay, great. We're going to use this to do this thing. That's where you can set yourself apart and you can really say, okay, look, like this is why I can charge what I can charge because I'm not only giving you this software that you're going to pay for anyway. You might pay less for, you might pay more for somewhere, but you're getting the results that we have, that I have, that whatever to bring that to bear. So that was a big light bulb moment for me. It was like, oh, it's not just about reselling the software. It's about reselling the result and the service that I package now on top of that. So that's been a really cool thing. I love white labeling. I'm a huge fan of it. Yeah, I can talk all day about it.
I mean, no, but that's what, like, for me in my mind, I'm like, that's what owning a business is. Like, you can go to 4 plumbers, and if it's just price you're looking for, fine, but that's never it. There's so many other things that come along with owning a business and selling a business. And I think, again, it's white labeling been around forever. There's a reason it's been around forever. It works. And I think that's super cool. So we talked about like, being able to being a business owner, being able to do this anywhere. So because you were moving around a lot, that's where it stemmed from. But during that time of moving around a lot, was the thought of maybe not this business, but a business always in your head, or was entrepreneurship something that after the point of you being like, hey, okay, like, I have this fitness idea, this seems cool, this can be a business going on? Because I know you, like you said earlier, you podcasted for a really long time. Was the original start of that because of wanting to own a business, or was that just something that you wanted to do? Like, where did those two things originate from?
Yeah, the podcast was a direct result of the app that I had started.
Okay.
Because the original, the app was called Run Wage. It doesn't exist any longer, but I shut that down to run this one. But the podcast was called Run Your Day, and it was basically like the marketing arm of like I would promote the app, I would talk about it, and that just evolved into Tech Bites and kind of now the business and technology stuff that I talk about, but that's how I got into the podcasting. Was like I just wanted to try it. I wanted to promote it. Again, being down the Russell Brunson route of like, hey, you just got to publish. You got to find your voice. So I literally used to just publish my podcast like this, talking into my phone, and then just publish. I would not edit. I would not do anything. I would just publish like 5-10 minute episodes. Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was really cool. I just hit 400 episodes.
Yeah, I listened to your 400th episode. It's I'm gonna tip. So the episode you mentioned, I'm gonna tag in the show notes, but I'm gonna put your podcast in there. It's a really cool listen, and I think it's candid enough that at least for the episodes that I listened to of just you talking, that it's very personable. It doesn't sound like you're over rehearsed.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's been a really fun thing. But yeah, to answer your question, at the time, so yeah, I go back to, I was in the software world. That was a pretty good gig I had. She was still in medical school, my now wife. And it was just kind of to the point. Can you hear my dog barking in the
Yeah,
background?
listen,
Okay.
we're doing the same thing. There's nothing we can do
Gotcha.
about it. There's no reason to stop it.
Yeah.
Because he was about to start barking again. I gave him a look and he went downstairs. So I think,
Okay, mine are in the other room, but there's a fireplace, so it's like see-through wall.
Yeah.
Anyway, but so I was at the software testing job, and I was getting promoted, and I was doing pretty well. I was becoming the manager of the team, and then that really kind of was a shocking moment to me when I went to I think my boss, like a couple levels above me, like kind of the big project manager, and I was like, hey, my wife is, or my girlfriend, my fiance at the time was like, we're probably going to be moving. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know like we have branches everywhere else. Is there a branch over here? Is this what, we could possibly do? And it was a very big life lesson for me. And kind of what I think started me down this path was because they were like very off put by it and kind of disrespected and like, well, he's leaving. We don't need to do anything. We just promoted him and blah, blah, blah. And it was like this, I felt like this just instant, like drying up of people weren't pouring into me anymore. Nobody came by to talk to me. It was just like, okay, he's dead to us, whatever.
Really? How long before you were going to move was this conversation?
That was probably about 6 months.
Oh,
6 to 8 months.
So 6 months of just like shit.
Yeah, and I was trying to do the right thing. Like I was trying to be like, hey, like I'm giving you plenty of notice. Like we're probably not going to end up staying. Actually, I think it was only like 3 or 4 months now that I think about it. It was a while ago. Can't remember that much. I got a lot of gray hair,
At least you got here.
But that was kind of where, my initial part of like, oh, okay, we're gonna be so mobile. We're gonna be moving all the time. It's I don't know anybody where we're moving. We were moving to random places. A lot of people get jobs through networking, and who you know. So I was like, I don't know anyone where we're going. So I didn't have any connections, no way to head start, no anything like that. It was just kind of like apply and hope, So that was kind of one piece of it. And then I think the more places I worked, the more I just realized I'm like a typical Leo, I think. Like I'm not big into the signs, but I've learned that like Leos are like hate taking direction. They're the king of the jungle, right? And I was like, yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's me. I don't really like taking direction a lot from people when, like, especially when they're just like my direct, hire,
Yeah.
which is funny because when you get into business for yourself, you don't just have one boss, you have like all kinds of bosses, and it's every client. And you're like, oh shit, that was a bad trade.
Said every entrepreneur ever.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was part of it. And then, part of me, I just started to realize, like, I think I had a kind of a mindset of, well, somebody will take care of me at some point. Like somebody will like figure it out for me. I can kind of coast on that. And that kind of woke me up to like, no, Dan, like nobody's going to do that for you. And I was asleep to that. Like I really was. And then I woke up and I was like, oh shit, like I need to take care of me. And I was way too old to realize that I actually did. But like it is what it is at this point, so, but that was kind of where, and I was like, okay. And I really didn't even set out to like, be like, okay, I'm going to start a business that's completely mobile. I can go wherever. It just kind of worked out that way, to be honest with you. I just was like, well, I really want to do this. And this is what I think I should do. So I'm going to go do it, So yeah, I think that was just kind of my evolution at that point in time.
Yeah. I think, well, I was going to say when you said that you think it's because you're a Leo, I think it's like, I really think it's like a millennial thing. Like, I think the millennial generation, I think we're very like, not that we don't take directions. Like we're in the workforce, like millennials work, but I think that very much like if we get bossed around too much. Because if you watch like movies in like the movies from like the 50s and 60s, if you look at like a job scene, the boss is very much up your ass and just like, this is what you have to do. And like, I know, at least for myself, and I'm assuming based on what you said for you, it's like, you can tell me what needs to get done, but I'm going to figure out how to do it. And like, don't be, too much up my ass. I don't know if I should be saying this out loud. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, but I can totally get that. And that's, so now when it comes to, I want to, actually, fuck it. I want to go back to the wine. So tell me about what got you into making your own wine. Because I have more questions about tech, but like I've been thinking about your wine since you mentioned you made peach wine. So I'm very curious as to how that got started, and then how do you make peach wine?
Yeah. So I started with beer a long time ago. My
Okay.
wife got me like a beer making kit. I made that one time,
Yeah.
and I'll never make beer again.
How
Like it
come?
was so messy, and it didn't turn out very well. And it was a kit. I didn't keep trying. So
Okay.
I shouldn't knock it that much, but after I've done wine, I'm like, beer is not the thing to do. But I do mess around with still making my own whiskey at times.
Wow.
It just takes so much longer. So it's like you get one batch every like a year almost. So it's like not like something that
Shit. I was gonna
like
ask you to make me a
wine is
bottle.
like 6 weeks. What's that?
I was gonna ask you to make me a bottle because if once a year that's not. That's
Yeah, I
too.
mean, so I've gotten them in like 3 months or 4 months, but then it's kind of like that. You just need to let it age. It can still work that way. I've done like some different whiskey infusion things where you can kind of you buy store-bought whiskey and then you infuse it with different flavors and stuff. It's not making it, it's just flavoring it kind of. But wine, I discovered, my buddy actually got me one. It was like a winemaking kit for our Secret Santa gift, like our college buddies one year. And he just sent me like this, hey, make 15 1-gallon, combinations of wine. And I was like, I never even thought of that, but I was like, this is cool. So I tried doing it. I was like, oh, I had the recipe for a 1 gallon, right? And I'm like, fuck that. I'm going to make 5. So I went and bought like all the strawberries, all these different things. And I don't know what went wrong, but like I completely miscalculated it and it like overflowed and it blew up it fermented way too much. And, like blew the top off and got strawberries all over. I was like, oh gosh, that was not good. So I didn't actually do it for a while. But then ever since we moved here to Pittsburgh, I just kind of felt like I needed something else to kind of do as just something. And I was like, I always wanted to get back into it. So, so I actually found some different mixes and fruit bases that you can kind of use or combine with fruit online. And so I'll actually buy those, and then you mix them with water and some fruit and some different flavorings, and you kind of make your own little concoction of it. Um, and that's been really fun because then, like I said, you let it sit for a couple weeks, then you just re-rack it, kind of dump it out of one, put it in the other, and then you just let it sit again for another 4 weeks, and you kind of test it and taste it and flavor it and do whatever, and then you bottle it. So that's been really cool. And it's just been fun because now like I have a couple of family members, a couple of my cousins do it as well up in Erie. And then we'll trade every time I go up there. I'm like, hey, I got a bottle. They got a bottle. You have different, like, it's just kind of fun to like, oh, what do you think of mine? What do you think of his? What do you think of whatever? So it's just kind of a fun, like, little thing. But yeah, it's been kind of, but it's also kind of cool because it's also, it's also kind of ties back into the validation idea of like, when I'm taste testing it, I like certain wines. Like I'm probably more of a sweet, semi-sweet kind of dry. It was for someone who makes wine. People, they say if you like wine, you like dry wine. If you're a wine person, But there's certain flavors of dry wines. Like I made a couple of these. Usually, when you make the wine, it comes out dry if you don't put anything else in it.
Okay.
So dry peach, I do like. So I bottled a few bottles of the dry before I made the rest sweet. So that was kind of cool. But then yeah, like now but it's also like I'll taste it and then I'll be like, okay, that's not bad. But then I'll go get another thing and I'll be like, tell my wife like, hey, can you taste this for me? Because she has completely different preference. And I know her mom likes some super sweet, like Arbor Mist type sweet.
Yeah.
My sister really likes super dry wines. My mom likes drier wines. So I'm kind of like, okay, my audience is all over the place here. How do I draw the line of like, here's the flavor I want to make? And, honestly, this is not the answer for tech, but when it came to wine, eventually I was like, screw all of you. I'm going to make it so I like the taste of it because I drink 90% of it.
Yeah.
So screw all of you. I don't give a shit what you like. If you want some, you can have it, but I'm going to make it how I like it because
Yeah.
I drink most of it. I'm the customer.
Exactly.
I'm the customer. But yeah, I did my first flavor was elderberry. I did mango. I did strawberry. I did blackberry, and I did cherry this past winter. That was good. It was a little tart, like cherry flavor.
Yeah.
And then I just did peach. So it's been really fun.
That sounds very interesting. I think I'm like, because I always think like, oh, I might want to make, before I was like, I might want to make beer just because I know several people that do it and it's fairly common, I guess, nowadays. But at the same time, beer isn't my favorite alcohol, like in general. So I'm like, maybe wine might be the one to give a shot to. All right. So this is a question and we kind of touched on it earlier. But I'm just curious on, you mentioned that there was a company that had a full, like app that was fully coded out, all their own custom build, and then they moved it over into no code. In terms of the types of people that this might be more exciting for, have you seen any people like enterprise level clients in this space? Is that a thing, or are they mostly like in the middle, in terms of size? Because I feel like enterprise, you have millions to spend on it, and they do that. Just because it's cheaper doesn't mean it's not as good. There are some things that we talked about that it's still getting there based on AI picking up some pieces. But what do you think in terms of customer base now and in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's starting to be adopted more by enterprise level clients. There's actually an article I was reading not long ago where the original COVID-19 like tracing app that needed to be stood up like within like 0 time was built using no code. That was that kind of level. Yeah.
Shit.
So yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy. There was another one where they were talking about they didn't say the name of it because it was obviously a privacy thing, but they said one of the biggest banking institutions in the country is seriously considering, they interviewed the CEO and like kind of under the guise of like, I'm not going to, tell myself who I am.
Yeah.
But they're like kind of in the process over the next few years of migrating a lot of their tools into no code or low code tools, just because of the processing speed and the processing ease of use and kind of, people turnover, like just, there was a lot of things. He's like, they tried one thing with it to move one system into it and it like outperformed the rest of them. And they were like, huh. So now they've kind of been like, okay, we're going to start rolling all of these different processes and systems into these no code tools. And that's a huge banking,
that would change the game. Like that would be disruptive to the next, it's not a name. Like that would be overall, but that would be super disruptive. And if you think about it, earlier when you're saying like, hey, like it's not going to be exactly sometimes with all the features everyone's looking for, but any app you open, you look at it and you're like, oh, I wish it did this. And it doesn't do it. And it's not going to do it probably for a while. So a banking or any company that moves on to an app that's no code, which anyway, if they do it in the next 5 years, AI is going to close up all the gaps soon anyway. Like you can see that that's happening. It's just crazy that it's like, if that happens, your business is going to explode. It's going to be like 15x because I feel like everyone's going to be scurrying to understand. People that haven't been investing their time to understand no code, it's going to be crazy. But
yeah, I mean, we're even kind of venturing more into the local government space. There's a lot of like cities, like city of Los Angeles, even city of Phoenix, like big cities that are utilizing some no code tools for different types of software. A lot of government agencies or city, agencies, departments run on Excel. They run on antiquated 1990s software. And a lot of them are seeking modernization. And sometimes, it depends on the complexity, but sometimes, no code has been a very, very good tool to modernize things for not a shit ton of money for that, So that's a very interesting market that we're finding a lot of demand in, really.
Funnily enough, it might even be good that it's as antiquated as it is. Like they skip the middle step because they could just take the spreadsheets, put it on ChatGPT, tell ChatGPT to set it up so that you can just feed it into, a platform that makes a no-code thing, and you're done. And you didn't have to, that because you're right. Not even just governments. Like so, there's companies out there that run on spreadsheets, and it's like, oh, you're a sales team without a CRM, and you're just using spreadsheets. You know what I mean? Like that's. But damn, it'd be cool because then they were behind the times for so long, it actually worked for them, which I don't think is something we want to tell people to do, but it kind of works out that way.
Yeah.
Well, and then what do you think it's going to do to, okay, before that, actually, I've been having a thought this whole time. I think that we're at a point where it's going to go from like no code to like no typing, where you just go in and like speak to your computer and be like, hey, build this each time, and or no more making like individual apps. Like instead of me getting like the, I don't know, an app to whatever, an alarm app, right? Like I have this really cool alarm app that tracks my sleep and wakes me up right when I'm about to get out of REM sleep so that it doesn't disturb me or whatever. So I wake up early. Instead of getting an app that everyone else has, I can tell my phone, hey, make an app that'll do this, 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 and this. And then that's what's on my phone rather than getting that. So, but what do you think this is going to do for like workforce?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that. That's really, that's what a lot of us are looking for. You mentioned the millennial generation. I think like a lot of us, we like the Burger King model of things. Like we want to have it our way. Like we do want to have, like that was how I started my first one. I was like, there's all these tools out there, but I wanted something that did this specifically.
Yeah.
And I built it myself. Right. And that's what I think is it's an American spirit. It's an American mindset of like, go forth and conquer, what's the word? Manifest destiny, right? Like, just go forth and do those things. And that's one of that's one of the other things that's been around for a very long time. And one of the drawbacks even that people say like, oh, why this no code stuff is they call them the shadow developers, right? Of like the people who are like, well, I just need this like tool that kind of monitors my inbox for me and sends these, or like more than a filter, but like just does these other things. Or like, I just need this tool that kind of makes it sends my reports out when I'm on vacation, or like something, silly when I'm just thinking of things off the top of my head. So that's always been a thing of like the shadow developer, right? Or the shadow IT department. So that's a very interesting thing, which I don't think is anything new for like, big companies and such, but I think in terms of like, I'm thinking like Neuralink, like, okay, like you can just think the thing into existence kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a sci-fi thing anymore. I think that's, speaking to talk, creating things like is definitely not just a like, that's cool kind of like, no, that's actually a thing.
Yeah.
So that's going to be I think that really does. It leads to way more just, okay, custom things, because I just need this specifically to do this one little function, and that just pulls up this. But that also leads to, I think what a lot of people don't know of like called technical debt of like, okay, I used this thing and then I used it for myself one time and then I forgot that
Yeah.
all right, I used it for a month and then I'm like, yeah, I don't really need it anymore. I forget about it or whatever. My dog is crawling through the fireplace to come into the room now.
Oh, that's adorable.
She did this the other day. She's like, I can't be apart from you for more than an hour.
Oh, that's
and
sweet.
then I need to break into the room.
That's so funny.
So yeah, I'm very, and this is part of where I get a little nervous. I'm like, okay, how does someone like me fit into this world in the future? Like where does this leave the no-code developer? Where does this leave that kind of expertise? But I think like anything, it's just the changing nature of it. It's the mastery of the tool instead of being put out of business by the tool. And that's kind of where I've been pouring a lot of my focus is to how do I leverage these things? How do I learn to master these things so that in the future, like I'm prepared for it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And then what are your thoughts on saturation? I feel like if everyone's able to build an app, there's going to be a lot of apps out there. What do you think? Have you seen anything to speak to the thoughts of saturation in terms of the market?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think like I wouldn't say that saturation is anything new as well. Like there's a thing called zombie apps. You know, like they always say if your app isn't in the top 25 ranking in the app store for a certain keyword or a certain you know, um category, that it's just, it's a zombie, right? It's just not going to get any traction. I don't know if that's particularly like the future. I think like saturation is always going to be there. But there's so many new AI apps. There's just new things every single day. There's things that I don't even know existed yesterday that are available. So, I think but it also, again, there's so many different markets. There's so many new markets, new industries, new niches coming out that you could be the first mover in one that you might think is saturated, but if you just tweak it a little bit, it's brand new. It's in a market, it's in a category of its own. So, God, that's a very interesting one. It's a very, I think we're moving there, but I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think when it comes to saturation, like every time something new comes up in an existing field, you're like, oh, think about like television, right? It's like, how many shows, like if you were thinking of when it first came out, there's like 3 channels. They're like, how many shows could we even have? And then went up like 10 channels, and then cable. And now you can have as many shows, and now streaming, you can have as many shows. So it's like, anytime there's something new,
Yeah.
saturation comes up. But at the end of the day, if you build good things, it'll show for itself. But also at the same time, I think the way we were speaking about people building things from themselves based on AI, based on having that ability, again, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, it's kind of like your wine. You wanted something that you wanted that tastes good. So if you have an app that again, it might be, tech debt is something that no human being that's not in tech will really understand. But I think we're going to end up seeing, that's going to be another conversation. And if we have this podcast in 15, 20 years, we can talk about it then. All right. As we're wrapping up, there's a few things that, so I call these the FAQs, frequently asked questions. Just a quick rundown. Actually, before I do that, because I was going to do that, but you in another podcast you mentioned Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I have 2 questions. One is because I'm going to ask you your favorite book. So don't tell me your favorite book now. I'm going to ask you that later. But just some books that influenced you that you enjoyed. Keep the number 1 favorite if you have 1 or 2. Keep that separate. And then you mentioned your mentor. You mentioned you have a mentor. And I was just about to wrap it up, but I think this might take a little bit longer. Can you tell me about mentorship and the role that plays? Because I think that's something that nowadays people don't talk about enough, because I think most successful people have a mentor. They talk about mentorship, but I think that either that word is used very lightly, right? Someone's like, oh, this person's my mentor. But like mentorship is very specific, right? Like it's very, very deep. It's very strong. For someone who's had mentors in the past, it's very intimate. And I think to add depth to that word, rather than just saying it, flip it. Because you mentioned, and I'm sure it's a very important person, but I wanted to make sure to put a spotlight on it, because I do think that success, you need mentorship in success. And if you don't have mentorship, you really you miss opportunities, or you go down the wrong path and have to come back up the path to get to a right path. So talk about mentorship in your life if you could, if you're comfortable with it.
Yeah. It's funny, because I do think maybe when I use the word mentor, I maybe kind of have that the meaning that you mentioned of it, because I have adopted a lot of mentors, just like, oh yes, from afar, like you're someone I want to follow and pay attention to. But yeah, I think, the gentleman I was talking about, he's really not like it anymore, but there was a couple of years span where I was very involved. I started just being a member of his program, of just like buying his program and just being like, yeah, I want to be in your group coaching thing for a while, and just kind of go with what you have. And then it kind of evolved into more of like a okay, I really like what you're doing here and I want to pay attention to it. I started kind of reaching out individually and kind of asking questions. And then it just turned into like, hey man, like whenever you have anything that you need help with or guidance on, just let me know. Right. And it just kind of turned into that because, and it was all a movement on my part. It wasn't like he just was like, hey, I'm going to take you under my wing. It was just kind of like, um, it was, I wouldn't say it was like a super deep, super intimate, like mentorship mentee relationship, but it was a very like understood of like, hey, I'm trying to build what you've built, like help me kind of thing. And that was always, it was always very, very appreciated because we would have conversations like this where it was kind of like, it wasn't like the fluffy kind of like friendly, happy clappy kind of thing. It was more like, hey man, like I'm really stuck right here. Like I'm stuck on this piece of my business, whether it was sales or it was, you know, product or it was whatever. It's like, hey, like I'm not doing great here. Like, can you like I wouldn't tell a lot of other people that. Right? It was like, okay, like let's get to the bottom of this, let's work through it, that kind of stuff. But um so that was, I'm very, very thankful for that. But yeah, a lot of the mentors that I have just been people from afar that I've just been like, you know what? I really like what you do and I'm going to follow you and I'm going to probably call you my mentor, but like it's I probably should change that wording now that you say it like that. Cause it's not like a couple of them I've never even met, you know what I mean? But yeah, I do like consider them when I think of like, when somebody asks me about it, I'm like, I really will point. It's almost like, you know, it's like I would point to like, hey, they said this, you know, like I always reference, I wouldn't call him one of my mentors, but like Billy Jean, I always reference the quote he said one time that has always stuck with me. And it was, there's no such thing as $1 million idea, or there's no such thing as $1 million ideas. There's only $1 million execution. And it's like, yeah, that's what we talked about earlier. It's like you could have the tightest hold on your idea, but nobody cares.
Yeah.
You know, nobody cares. So yeah, that's kind of my experience with mentorship. But now I'm also turning around and I get to be a part of a teaching cohort for young kids now. So like 10 to 12 years old. That's been really cool, kind of teaching them the ropes of the no-code space and how to build things. I love their fascination with it. I love their curiosity with it. And it really does make me understand what I do more and how to build things and how to like, cause when you have to teach something, you got to really know what you're doing, you know? And know what you're talking about. But yeah, that's been a really cool turn to just kind of, it's not like I'm teaching another entrepreneur. I'm teaching like the future entrepreneurs of, you know, 20 years from now.
You ended up being a teacher anyway. You reached your
up
life
being able to
goal
teach,
from college.
Yeah.
You know, but it's funny, and I'm actually really glad I asked you about mentorship because what you did, the way you described the first relationship, I think whenever I hear anyone talk about getting a mentor that's already successful, that's how it starts, right? Like it starts with, I'm gonna pay for your time, or I'm just gonna keep showing up in proximity and then ask a question and then get an answer and then show that my questions aren't stupid questions and I'm actually thinking about them. And then you end up getting anyone that I've actually met that has a mentor that's in any way successful, or some of them even have high profile mentors. It was never like we just became friends. It was, I just like hung around and was nearby and like asked questions that made them think I wasn't an idiot. And I just kept going. And then one day I would just ask or email a very specific question that I knew they had the answer to. And I would get a 4-paragraph response. And then I would either respond with an acknowledgement of what they said and what I'm going to do next, and then not expect anything back, right? That's the bigger thing, is not sending an email like, hey, I can't wait to hear back from you, because this person might not be fucking available, you know, with the thousands of people they're meeting with, hundreds of people they're meeting with. But if you're able to just be there in proximity, that's a great, and then now you have an actual relationship with a person that knows who you are, that actually knows you, and it takes time to grow and evolve. And the stuff about a mentorship from afar, bro, I think I have people that I'm like, so like for me, I don't know if you've heard of him, Tim Ferriss. He's a podcast. He's like one of the original podcasters of all time. That person, obviously never met him, but like I have all of his books, listened to his podcasts almost religiously. One of the main reasons I wanted to have a podcast because I'm just like, this person's so cool. Now, there are in podcasting, Tim is my mentor. I look at the stuff that he does and I look at the style in podcasting, he's my mentor. Outside of it, I don't know him well enough, obviously, to be like, all those things. So I think that's a good mentality to adopt, as long as you can segment and understand, like, if you're going for what you're looking for from these people, right? So that's awesome. All right. So that was a segue that definitely was worth taking, but I'm gonna jump back to the FAQ. So first one, best advice you've ever gotten, or your favorite quote, or both.
I mean, I already said it, I guess, like that, there's no such thing as $1 million ideas, only $1 million execution. I will say maybe a bonus one for you. I've been even thinking about getting t-shirts with it on it and stuff. Is done is better than perfect. I think that's always been one that I really love to hold up as an example to just kind of remember, and not only in business, but in every area of life, of just getting things done around my house is better than having them perfect. So, I mean, my wife might disagree, but in certain things, but I'm like, at least I'm like, hey, it's done,
You can perfect it after it's done, and it's easier to do that.
Done is better than perfect, I think, especially in the world we live in. It's so fast. But and I'll give you another bonus one. I have a paper up here. I've always loved The Game of Inches speech by Al Pacino on Any Given Sunday. I have the whole thing printed out on a piece of paper. It just fires me. I'll watch that YouTube video once a week. It's like, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Oh man, I love it. All right. That's fucking awesome. Best investment you've ever made.
Interesting. Is this just
anything,
financial,
any way you want to put anything you consider an investment, time, money, energy.
I think I can't point to one single one, but I have invested in myself many, many, many times over the past 5 to 10 years, and it's been worth it every single time. Even to the point where I was spending thousands of dollars to invest in myself on different coaching programs or sort of trips or events or whatever. It might not be a financial return right away sometimes, but the compounding of continually investing in me, and not only my skill sets, but my mindsets and all that stuff, has completely changed who I am. And it's completely changed what I think and what I'm capable of and what I do and how I make money and how, who I serve and all that stuff. So, I can't point to one single one. It's just continually investing in me.
Yeah. No, hell yeah. No, I was going to say, I think events, so I've never gone, it's on my list. It's something I want to do, but Tony Robbins, right? But similar events to that, and I've gone to similar events, but not the specific one. Just going there, you can't see a one-to-one return, but just going there, it's just different energy when you come back. You just come back and you're ready to, and you don't know what it is. And then, you just took a trip, met some people, jumped up and down a few times, come back and you're ready to go. I think those things are the hardest things to explain to people that haven't been to one, why you need to spend sometimes a lot of money to go, but it's so worth it. Really cool.
And just being there, being in that energy, is something totally different. I went to a podcasting thing in January, and just being around those people and just seeing people and just getting different perspectives while you're there is just it's a nice shake up from being in the office and staring at screens.
Yeah. No, and it makes you want to work. It makes you want to do, and not that, we all have our hours of working and we work, but it makes you come back and you're it's 9:30 at night, you're in your hotel room. You're all right, this is the next thing I'm going to do, all that stuff. That it's, I think energy is what it really is. And I love it. Best thing you've ever been gifted.
Best thing I've ever been gifted. Um, well, it was probably a coaching program that it's at least inside of business. I'd have to think about it in my personal life, but I was able to do a barter deal in my early days of with someone who charged a lot of money on on like coaching in businesses and how to grow things, and I knew it was like exactly what I needed, and I was like nowhere near able to afford it. And he was cool enough to be like, well, what if you build something for us? I wanted to build this app. I wanted to do this thing. Let's barter. Let's do that. And I was like, awesome. So I considered that a gift. It really wasn't. I had to provide something for him. You know what I
Sure.
mean? But that was a huge gift because he didn't have to do that. He was clearly in a position where he didn't need my money.
Yeah.
But it was so cool because the things I learned I still carry forward to this day, and have executed on and made money from. And he never asked for any money in return. Like, oh, any money you make from this, give me whatever percentage. It
Yeah.
was like, that was really cool. So that was um, a really cool gift. And then I always, there's been many times in my life where I'm gifted with wisdom and time, time spent with people and family and stuff. That's always a good gift to have.
So if you had to put something on a billboard and or a t-shirt, besides done is better than perfect, because and I agree, that's we'll put it on there too. But you have a billboard for millions of people to see. Give us a message.
It's funny. I would probably put something. Do you remember that video that Shia LaBeouf put out?
The
Yeah. Oh, just do it. Yeah. I saw that a couple weeks ago, and there was one line in there that I would love. I would put on a billboard. It was like, stop giving up, or stop. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was like stopping, kind of like
yeah
stop giving up on yourself.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
keep going on the things you're doing. I can't think of the exact thing, but I would look up that line and I would put that on there, because like
Yeah, yeah.
that is always like, because I used to do that a lot. I used to like, I would start something and I would stop before I would even see the results of it. I
Yeah.
would start and stop and start and stop and start, and then I wondered like, why am I not getting anywhere? And I think that's such a loss because we're such a microwave society. I think that would really call a lot of people out and be like, look, just commit to something and just fucking go.
Yeah.
Just go, But yeah, and then I would have the,
That's yeah.
Oh.
We got to call Shia LaBeouf and see if we can license that.
such a great video.
It is.
Man.
It
It's
is such a-
hilarious.
It's like it's about like, I think that in today's age there's so many things that distract you to get you to stop, because even like with anything that we do, if you just keep going, like if you can make it small enough to be like even with podcasting, or like for me, like I have previously, we'd done like 13 episodes, 14 episodes, and I was like, all right, like, can I get to 40? Can I get to 30? Right? Can I get to 20? Mind you, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I know what it would be.
Let's do it.
You really it would be the Qui-Gon Jinn quote: "Your focus determines your reality." I love that one.
I love
That's
it.
a good one. Well, because like you just said, like that really made me think. Like, this world is designed to make us distracted. I mean, how much? Like, there's literally, we know this. There's literally people that sit in Silicon Valley and all these different social media things that are literally paid tons and tons of money to figure out how to manipulate your brain to be distracted.
Yeah.
By this, like all the time, right? So your power to focus is literally what helps determine your reality. You can figure out a way to focus that stuff, like you're unstoppable, So I would put that on the billboard. I'd change my submission. I would say your focus determines your reality.
I love it.
That's
And
what I'm
you're absolutely right. It's like, so I forget who I was listening to. Someone was like, I make my kids sit down and read from when they were little, like just force them to get in the habit of being able, because like people can't read anymore, frankly speaking. Not that they're not able to read, but it's like sitting down to read a book. Mind you, I Audible like there's no tomorrow, but that's more so I'm dyslexic, so like Audible is like my haven. But and I can't believe how much I hated books growing up, because I absolutely, they're my drug right now. But I just think being able to sit down and not, I just got back on Instagram after like a year, because it was like I could be on there all day long and I look up and it's been 3 hours, and some days I'm upset about it, but some days I'm like, all right, whatever, like it is what it is, which is the worst thing you can do in that sense, where you accept the fucking time suck. Anyway, I digress. 2 questions and we're out of here. What is something you changed your mind about in the last year?
Something I've changed.
Or in the
my mind
last
about.
some amount of time.
This is a good one. This is a very timely one. So this was actually just last week. I don't know if I've fully changed my mind on it, but I'm ruminating on it. It's kind of something I'm going through right now, and it's this idea of contentment. And it's this balance of how do you find contentment and be content with the things that you have and the things that you've accomplished, but also kind of strive to go forward. Like how can you, what is the point of contentment? What is I used to, when I say that to say, like, my story was just go, just grind, just do the thing. I wasn't fully bought into the hustle culture. I will say that, of like, just grind 24/7. Like, I never have been a subscriber to that, but I always was like, I need to go. I need, like, there was always this internal, like, go, earn more, do more, be more, do this, do that, do whatever. And now I'm kind of thinking like, maybe there is room for being content, at least for a time, right? It's a concept I'm really struggling with around, like, I know I haven't made it to the point where I can retire and I can just do whatever I want with my life. I don't have FU money, you know what I mean? Yeah. So that's something I've changed my mind on. I think you're starting to change my mind on around, like, should I constantly be pursuing things? Should I constantly be doing this, doing that? So I wouldn't say I've really fully changed my mind on it, but it's something I'm really, really giving a lot of thought to.
It's crazy. I had a conversation about this today. I was at the gym. My friend's uncle also comes to the same gym, so he showed up. I was there. I was there at 6:30. He got in at like 7:15. So I took a break from my workout, and we just talk about random stuff. He's in his like mid to late 50s. He's like, so he talks about, he's like, I can afford to retire. I don't know why I haven't retired yet, is what he's saying. And he's talking about how one of his friends is like 71, but he's still working, and not because he can't afford it. He's like, they're well off. He just wants to work. And then he talks about Mike Bloomberg, who's like, I don't know how old he is, but he's old, but he works from like 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. type of deal. And I think, so we had the same discussion where we're like, what is enough, or what is the motivation behind working, right? Like, are you working because it's not enough, or are you working because you want to be busy? And I think so he and I came to this understanding of like, do what you need to do to avoid lethargy, right? You don't want to get to a point where you're not doing shit and you're just laying there being lethargic. But I do think that, at least in my mind, in my like my mind's eye of life, I'm like, I want to have milestones that once I hit them, I divert my energy to something else. What it is up in the air. I'm not saying that we just stop, but it's like, I don't want to be, mind you, for the sake of, this is a podcast. I was telling him, I was like, I wouldn't mind podcasting until I like hit the grave, because you just sit down and have cool conversations with cool people. But the motivation is what's more important. That's what he was telling me. He was like, it doesn't matter what you're doing physically. It's about what's up here, because if your brain is craving it, that's a whole other problem. Anyway, that's the thing. But that is it's a good, cool thing to ponder and to change one's mind about.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's good.
If we do this again, hopefully I'll ask you again, and we'll see where we come back on this one. But last question, the one that I alluded to earlier: book that you've gifted the most, and or your favorite book.
Yeah, I think like you, I'm more of an audible kind of guy anymore. I don't really gift a lot of books. I have thought about it recently, with a new book that I've been reading. But I always have said, I haven't read it in a long time, but High Performance Habits by Brendon Burchard is a really, really, really good book to read. I've read it twice. Never gifted it, but it's one of my favorites. I would probably say that one. I have a lot of audiobooks that I've listened to and really, I think Atomic Habits has probably
Oh,
been my favorite
hell yeah.
audiobook I've ever listened to by James Clear. That's a really, really good one. Yeah, I'd probably say those two. But yeah, I'm not a book gifter. I probably should be a little bit more, but those would be my two, I'd say.
I fairly like over the last since COVID I started gifting books more, but I think that's more what I realized is if you gift a book, if you gift a book that really is for someone that you know that they'd appreciate and they actually read it, they would appreciate you so much because they're like, oh, you get me, right? So it's kind of it's been cool. But also like I have so like I do a lot of gifting in terms of nonfiction, but I gift fiction like it's nothing because I have this new series. It's newish that I'm like obsessed with. And I've been sending out like 6 books to people at a time where I'm like, read the whole series. Don't come back until you finished it. It's called Red Rising. At this point, I've talked about it in the last 3 episodes I've recorded. It's just the greatest series I've ever read. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. All right, so we're wrapping up. Tell me, Dan, what is next up for you? What's next up for Dapper? What's on the horizon?
We're just gonna keep the wheels greased and keep rolling on, man. We're you know, kind of like I said, we're diving into new areas of industry, new niches. You know, kind of trying different things out here and there. One thing we might get going here soon that I've been kind of kicking around is it's funny you actually said the white label stuff is a community around white labeling
Wow.
and software selling and that kind of stuff, just to kind of teach people that business model if anyone would possibly be interested in that. But that's another idea that I have not really validated or kind of put out there. So maybe this is a way to maybe do that.
Yeah.
If you would be interested in any kind of white labeling, you can send me a message. Because I was thinking about just doing like a school community or something like that, simple, of just but a place to document like how I built this, how I started it, how to successfully white label different things about it, but specifically inside the software space.
Yeah.
So that might be on the horizon. We'll see.
That's awesome. All right, yeah. Well, we're gonna keep an eye out for that. Where can people find you?
Well, you can go to dapperno-code.com. That is the website that has all the stuff, the podcast. Or if you'd like to connect with me personally, I am on LinkedIn at Dan Hafner.
Awesome, Dan. Anything you wanna leave us with?
Well, this was really, really fun. Really appreciate it. This might be the longest podcast I've ever been on, so I'm a little thirsty. I'm a little exhausted here. But
that's why I should have warned you. But
no, I figured with a 2-hour block, I was like, well, that's all right. We'll make it happen. But no, I think pay attention to the changing winds. Be a step ahead, and just use your brain. Think for yourself. Think critically about things. That's how I've always treated a lot of the things that I'm approached with or that I find. And trust your intuition. I think those are kind of the big things that lead you down the right path. So
I love it. Thank you, Dan. And to everyone listening, use your brain, right? And thanks for listening. Take care.